calls about something she didn't know to do. I saw a few ladies come in.
I'm not even opening up my computer. I'm not even opening up my computer.
Does ED have an opinion one way or the other on Fry Boulevard?
288 quarters.
I'm ready for a short one.
The only problem with that is we have no idea.
But anyway, that was Arizona Community.
They used to come from commissions and service guys.
That would be my
idea.
It looked like it was supposed to. I noticed that. I thought, oh, that's interesting. That's different.
He's got 3 stores around. He's trying to.
Yeah, well, I mean, the traffic engineers.
I can get down to single lane. All of it in the job could be a problem.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, it's going to stay 4 lanes back to at least North Garden, maybe a little bit further. Just in the light at North Garden, it's going to go away. It'll just be a stop sign in North Garden.
It would have been good.
It's being looked at. And there's still a little traffic.
Oh, well, we talked about it on the website.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I call to order the regular City Council meeting for 8 March 2018. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Rick Mueller.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Alicia Ash.
Present.
Councilmember Bob Blanchard.
Here.
Councilmember Gwen Calhoun.
Present.
Councilmember Rachel Gray. Councilmember Craig Mount.
Present.
Councilmember Christine Wolf.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mrs. Adams. We'll next go on to the prayer and the pledge. The prayer tonight will be led by Pastor Alan Bushnell of the Move City Church, pastor, and will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by the Girl Scout troops. Girls going to come in first, and then Pastor, when they get set, please get started. While the girls are getting set up here, I want to mention that we have Brownie Troop 419, Junior Troop 104, and Cadet/Senior Troop 1224, all here from the city of Sierra Vista. So thank you, ladies. Appreciate you being here.
Let us pray. Most gracious God, we thank you for all who are gathered here today, especially those that faithfully serve our city. We are grateful for their hearts to serve our community and to carry the responsibility for leading us in their respective roles. I thank you that you give each of us a responsibility to fulfill as part of this community, and I ask that you would help us be good stewards of every opportunity that we are afforded here tonight and into the future. In Scripture, we are told to obey and respect our governing authorities. We ask that each person gathered here today will promote peace, justice, and order in ways that benefit not just the city, but all of its citizens. We pray for our mayor, Rick Mueller, our city officials, this council, and those being appointed as members of the commission tonight. I ask that you would give them wisdom as they navigate tonight's agenda, as we celebrate 106 years of Girl Scouts serving American communities, as we make fiscal decisions on budgets and grants, as we appoint new members to commissions on disability issues and the Sierra Vista Airport Commission, and as we receive feedback from the public present here tonight. We thank you for the presence of these Girl Scouts who are here tonight representing this great group, and we pray your blessing upon them as they continue to serve the community here and in and around America. And as we go into our council meeting tonight, we ask that you would guide each person with the authority to vote and affirm these decisions that will be made tonight. We thank you for the privilege to serve you and our community in this regard, and ask that these proceedings will honor and glorify you. In your most holy and precious name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, ladies, and thank you, Pastor. Please be seated. We're gonna break from our normal thing here. We'll get to the approval of the acceptance of the agenda in just a moment. We're going to move up and have a presentation of the proclamation in honor of our Girl Scouts. And what I would like to do is, if we could ask our leaders to come up here as well. I know you ladies, just stand right here in front of the dais right here, please. I know you ladies don't normally like the recognition. You like your young leaders, young future leaders here to get the recognition. But obviously, the Girl Scouts wouldn't be what they are without the leadership and the parents to get involved. It's my honor and privilege as mayor of the city of Sierra Vista to offer the following proclamation on behalf of the good citizens of Sierra Vista. Whereas Girl Scouts of the USA is the largest leadership organization for girls in the world, and the number of Girl Scouts has grown to over 2.7 million members. And whereas Girl Scouting helps understanding, skill, and respect, and provide a foundation for sound decision making. And whereas Juliet Gordon Lowe organized the first Girl Scout troop on March 12, 1912, and the first Girl Scout cookie sale took place in 1917. And whereas this year marks the 101st year since the Girl Scout cookie program began, and celebrates the 106th anniversary of the Girl Scouts of the USA. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Frederick W. Mueller, Mayor of the City of Sierra Vista, Arizona, do hereby proclaim March 11 through 17 to be Girl Scout Week in and for the City of Sierra Vista. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the great seal of the City of Sierra Vista to be affixed this, the 8th day of March, the year of our Lord 2018, and independence of the United States of America, 241st. And it's signed Frederick Mueller, Mayor. Congratulations. Would you like to... Thank you, ladies. We'll now move to Mrs. Calhoun with the acceptance of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the agenda for the regular City Council meeting of March 8th, 2018 be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any changes, additions, deletions? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We just completed awards and presentations, so we'll go on to the city manager's report. Mr. Patuchik.
Thank you, Mayor Mueller, members of the council. Our next regularly scheduled work session is scheduled for Tuesday, the 20th of March, 3 p.m., and that'll be here in the council chambers. And very brief tonight, one bid to report upon. The airport refuelers and aviation fuel supplier bids were advertised January 21st through the 25th. And it looks like we'll have bid opening tomorrow, and hopefully I'll have some news at the next council meeting regarding that. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Patuchik. Any questions for Mr. Patuchik on his report? The next item is a public hearing item, and a motion is not required, but we'll be hearing tonight on the Community Development Block Grant for FY 18 and 19. And before we ask members to address us, members of the public to address us, Mr. McLaughlin, would you give us a staff report, please?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the purpose of today's public hearing is for you to consider funding applications for the upcoming program year and provide us any guidance and direction you wish to share in our preparation of the annual action plan. This is essentially the same process that the city has followed in prior years. As was the case last year, we're currently working with a funding estimate as the federal government has not yet completed the appropriations process. The President's budget continues to propose eliminating CDBG spending. We've been advised by HUD not to submit our annual action plan until the fiscal year 2018 allocations have been announced. We will then have 60 days after the allocations are announced or until August 16th, whichever comes first, to submit our plan. The estimate we're using for preliminary planning purposes is $200,000. Of that amount, 15% or $30,000 may be used to provide public services. Last Thursday, our application deadline for receiving applications from outside service providers. We have 2 qualified proposals, one from the Boys and Girls Club to fund after-school program scholarships, and another from Wellness Connections Working Well Project to assist disadvantaged persons find employment. Representatives from each organization are present this evening to present the details of the request and respond to any questions. They are prepared to talk about how the funding is essential to maintain or expand their programs and their plans for keeping the programs going in future years if CDBG funding is no longer available. While the regulations do not prohibit the city from continuing to provide funding for public service at the same or decreased level in subsequent program years, it's important to consider an agency's ability to grow capacity and services with the goal of becoming self-sufficient. In regards to projects, staff is recommending that the city fund a drainage study for the Sulgar neighborhood to identify additional ways to control drainage and minimize floodplain impacts. We're also recommending that the city start demolition of the former Public Works yard on North Avenue. The $60,000 that's estimated should be enough to take down the old Fleet building. We're also suggesting $15,000 for a mural project on the water tower at Canyon Drive and Denman Avenue in the Fry Town Site neighborhood, which we've discussed with Liberty Water for use permission. Any funds beyond the current estimate above $200,000 would be applied towards installing additional ADA sidewalk access ramps, which run about $2,500 a piece. So again, we're looking for preliminary direction prior to proceeding with the development of our annual action plan.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions about process before we call the folks up to address us. This comes to us now. We hear the applicants. When do we discuss it to make the decision point? And when does it come before us for a vote? Matt,
Sure.
Can you kind of explain the future process?
There's a schedule on page 3, and the current schedule calls for the presentation of the draft annual action plan, taking into account the guidance we received this evening at your next meeting. And of course, you know, we can not proceed with the adoption until we get the annual apportionment from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So the actual adoption is scheduled for May 10th, but that could be moved into June or July, depending on when that apportionment estimate is received by the city.
Okay, and the reason I ask that primarily is because we all have the packet that shows what the procedures are. Public does not.
Yes.
So we need to share that with the public. Okay. Any questions for Mr. McLaughlin on his presentation before we go to open it up to the public? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question, just for clarification. I did read the document that you sent in, so just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, if it's a program that we funded last year, so in this case the Boys and Girls Club, would they have to show an increase in any numbers between last year that we funded them and this time?
I did research that question, Mayor Pro Tem Ash, and the answer is no. They don't have to. They could just maintain the increase that was gained last year. It doesn't have to go up. It can go down. They just can't go below what they were awarded, which equates to 35. It defrays the cost of 35 program scholarships, and Jay Hamright will elaborate on that during his presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Matt? Do we have a bat in order, Matt, or just going to start calling people up?
It's at your discretion.
Well, I'll call Jay then. Jay, I see you sitting there. You're ready to go. I know. Jay is from the Boys and Girls Club. Thanks for being here, Jay.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Well, first of all, thank you guys for choosing the Boys and Girls Club as a recipient last year from the grant. I have a letter from a parent that she wanted me to share with you today, but I'm going to summarize that for you so I don't have to read it off for you. This parent states that she's a single mother of 3 kids who is currently working and going to school with hopes of bettering the lives of her family. The scholarship assistance she received through this grant helped to take care of her children and also enabled her to keep her job. She said it's been very beneficial to her family, and she says she truly doesn't know where she would be if it wasn't for this scholarship. And then I also want to talk about one of our members too. He was actually one of our Youth of the Year candidates for the club's Youth of the Year program. That program allows kids to have an opportunity of achieving or obtaining over $140,000 in scholarships every year through essays and speeches. And in this member's speech, he said that when he received money for his birthday growing up, he would give it to his mother to help with the bills. His dream is to start a clothing company that produces stylish clothes that all youth can afford, despite their family's financial situation. So these are the type of families, these are the type of the youth that this grant has been able to help out. I also want to update you with our results so far as of this year that we've been able to achieve so far. 100% of the youth served through this grant qualifies for free lunch, and also 100% of the youth served through this grant comes from households with less than 50% of the median family income. 65% of the youth served were minorities or are minorities. And 100% of the youth served through this year are on track to progress to the next grade level. So at this time, that's all I have for you. If you have any questions for me.
Questions? Yes, sir.
How's it going, Jay? It's good to see you again. You know, last year when we did go through this, and, you know, we all are supportive of the program, and we talked about the risks of sustainability, especially with this, and I hesitate to use the word competition, but we have a lot of organizations just like yours in the community.
Of course.
What measures have you taken or has the organization taken in order to achieve a level of sustainability that would allow you to maintain those results, those positive results, should this grant go away next year or the year after? You know, I don't see it lasting forever.
Yeah. So this is kind of a two-part answer to your question. So, I mean, not just us, any nonprofit, if we lost, we received $15,000 last year. Yeah. If we lose that $15,000, we're not going to be able to still perform at that same level, which should be understandable. But at the same time, with that $15,000 that we received last year, we were able to go and use that to leverage matching funds from donors, businesses, and foundations. So for every dollar that you guys were able to bring, that you guys awarded us last year, the club was able to go grab 2.5. Okay, so that's what we're doing to make sure, even if this grant goes away, we're able to still serve the kids that need our help.
Do you have a plan to ultimately break away from requiring the grant in order to have your own sustainability, so that maybe another organization can follow in your footsteps with your results?
Well, yeah, this process right here that we're using to continue to leverage matching funds from donors, business owners, that is our process to help us stem away from that or move away from that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Jay? Thank you, Jay. Appreciate you applying.
Thank you.
Next, we want to ask the representative from the Wellness Connection, Mrs. Bellinger, to come forward, please, if you would.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Please.
Okay. So I'll share with you a little bit about Wellness Connections. And before I do, I want to mention that I have a son who participates in the local Boys and Girls Club program. And he's benefited tremendously from his participation there. So I just want to give them a plug. Wellness Connections is a community-based nonprofit organization that's been serving the Sierra Vista area since 2002. We are under the corporate umbrella of Southeastern Arizona Consumer Run Services, Inc., or SECRIS, so you can understand why we rebranded to Wellness Connections. We are, in some ways, kind of similar to a Boys and Girls Club, but for adults, in that our focus is on providing people with the support and skills training, resources, and opportunities to help them attain their individual potentials. And so we serve those in the community 18 and over that are living with behavioral health, disability, or are in either mental health and or substance use recovery. We're a consumer-operated organization in that our leadership, our direct support, our administration, are nearly 100% people who themselves have the lived experience of mental health and/or substance use recovery. And we view wellness across the 8 dimensions, so more in that holistic sense, understanding that you can't really separate mental health from physical health. There's a lot of integration there. So the 3 areas that we focus on in particular are health and wellness, support to men and women who are returning to the community from incarceration. So the services that we offer are peer support and self-help services, skills training that can include, basic communication, money management, cooking, other life skills, parenting. And then with our employment services program, we help people, depending on where they're at in their stage of readiness for may have had their lives disrupted with an illness and they're trying to return to the workplace. Others may be just at a point where they're exploring those possibilities. Some may need help completing their GED training. Some are looking for volunteer opportunities in the community that kind of can serve as a bridge to employment. And so we provide, the GED tutoring, access to a computer lab, computer and technology training. We also help people with connecting with basic resources such as housing, food, clothing, and we have a supported housing program for those that have a serious mental illness. And then we also are a partner with the Southern Arizona Community Food Bank. So we are a local community pantry, and we provide food boxes and emergency food assistance. And we support a lot of other nonprofits in the area with food product that we are able to share with them. So we also have a culinary arts training program, wellness coaching, health, nutrition, fitness facilities. Since we opened our first center in Sierra Vista, we've grown and we have 6 sites across the 4 counties. And we also provide some mobile outreach services to outlying areas. And we were recently awarded a grant to conduct opioid outreach. So we're very involved in that effort in the local community with other stakeholders and partners in that effort. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be considered for this, for the Community Development Block Grant. And I, with regard to how we would apply those funds if awarded, our Working Well project, the purpose, the aim of this project would be to assist individuals residing in the Sierra Vista area living with mental health or substance use disorders to overcome barriers to employment and to obtain gainful work in the community. And so there are 2 primary components of our request. And one is for to support a special assistance fund, and that would include those special assistance would include needs that aren't otherwise covered through our contracts or other funding. So very often these are things that we assist people with, but we absorb those costs. And so it could include where, and again, I want to just make clear that this would be in the event that these resources aren't otherwise available through other sources or entities in the community. So help with paying GED testing fees, maybe appropriate work attire. We've helped people that needed work boots to start a job or a jacket or blazer for job interviews. Assistance with paying to those fees for reestablishing their identification or their fingerprint clearance that might be needed for a job, and that's usually about $67 for a clearance. And those can be barriers to people seeking employment. Haircut, basic grooming and self-care items, assistance with transportation needs. The health plans that we work with, and they will cover those services that are considered medically necessary, but they don't cover appointments, like job appointments for interviews, or for people that might have court appointments that they have to keep. And so this would go toward helping people who don't have their own means of transportation or don't have ready access, or they may have some mobility issues and require additional assistance. And so we have vehicles that we would be devoting toward this effort, and but we're looking for help with offsetting some of our fuel costs, and then we are also looking to apply a portion of this grant toward the dental assistance fund that we've established. And that is because individuals that are on Access will only pay for emergency extractions, but if an individual has a bad tooth that could have otherwise been preserved, Access will pay to pull it. So a number of individuals that we serve have dental problems as a result of either poor nutrition, or they've sometimes the effects of the medications themselves can cause the dental health to deteriorate. And so that is another area where we'd like to apply these funds. Also, to help people with disability-related barriers, there are applications like Dragon Speak for people who have reading and writing disabilities that we would apply a portion of these funds toward. Again, these funds would not be used to supplant funds that we get from any other contracts. And the other portion of this request would be applied toward a special assistance coordinator, and that would be someone who would work approximately 8 hours per week, and they would help individuals that need to be connected to local resources. They would provide the transportation to those appointments and interviews that aren't otherwise covered. And they would also provide skills training to people that would be participating in this program. We would anticipate sustaining this effort through our social enterprise efforts. We have a program, our culinary program, which provides the training for the Serve Safe Food Handlers certification, and we've also in the coming months we will be launching our Garden Cafe to Go. It's a catering program where we provide on-the-job training for members in the program, and we've been operating this on a small scale over the last couple years, and we're looking forward to launching this enterprise very soon. And I would anticipate that revenue generated through that enterprise will provide ongoing support beyond the period of the grant.
Does that conclude your remarks?
I believe so.
Okay. Questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hi. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name earlier, but I'm Craig.
Deanna Bellinger.
Nice to meet you. When Jay was up here last year, and I think that was the first time, at least since we were on council, that we funded a service kind of a program versus a city project in quite a while. And some of the concerns were similar to the questions that I, mentioned to the Boys and Girls Club just a minute ago. We don't control these funds holistically. They kind of come, and as Mr. McLaughlin said, we're not even guaranteed to get the funds that are coming in now. One of the things that we mentioned as a use case with the Boys and Girls Club was, if it works, others will surely follow. And clearly he set a good use case because others are starting to follow. But sooner or later, we have to figure out how to sunset some of this so others can continue to follow. And I guess my questions are, and I think it was kind of in there, but if you were to get it, say, for 1 year, and I know you mentioned a lot of different things that this grant could cover, if you have success, would you be able to manage the success to the point where the next year it may not be there? And would you guys be able to cope with the loss of that income that we might not be able to provide next year or even this year?
Right. Well, some portion of this we have been absorbing, but due to contracts and changes within the behavioral health system statewide, we are experiencing some significant constraints. So that is a concern to us as well. So we've taken some measures. One, for example, we've recently implemented the tax credit and educated our employees, and we have a high level of participation in that program. So those would be discretionary funds that could be applied. I could see in the future toward supporting this program, and as I mentioned, the proceeds from our job training program with the catering, the revenue from that, we would also anticipate, and the amount being $15,000. I see that as being quite doable.
So I think what I understand is if we were to award the money to you and your organization this year, if for some reason next year we can't, or there's 3 other organizations that are there that are also laying out as a fine of example of what they're going to do with it as you have, it's not going to cripple your organization though, correct? The sudden loss of it?
No, I don't believe that it would.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we also are pursuing fundraising efforts in addition to support our various programs.
Hi, Deanna. Just a brief question. I noticed that you hope to serve about 55 people in various ways that you listed. Do any of those, do you expect would be actually employed by an outside group, agency, business in the community? Is that one of the goals?
That is our goal, and we want to employ as many people as possible. And we do work with a number of local employers, and we're growing that effort as well. We have a dedicated employment services division now and a manager who is devoted to growing that effort, and a dedicated team of certified employment specialists. And we're also looking at getting more involved with the community through the chamber.
There's a position that I can't remember the name of, but it's someone who actually goes to the employment site with a person who's newly employed. Do you have those sort of folks on your
our team? Yes, we do. Our employment services team includes individuals that will provide support across the continuum. So whether it's job exploration and pre-job, pre-vocational opportunities kind of that move them in that direction, to job placement, and then working with employers to help maintain employment for those individuals. And this would also enable us to help people get not only to those interviews, but even hopefully possibly to jobs until they are able to have their own means of transportation.
Thank you so much.
And we also look to develop a volunteer corps that would support this effort with
Ms. Ash.
time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I forgot to thank Deanna and Jay, both of you, for your service to the community. Just a question for clarification. These are the only 2 community organization requests that we received this year, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and then a process question. Will we be getting this information laid out to us in writing at some point?
The presentation?
Yeah. So, for example, that was a whole lot of information, and it's very clear that you're doing quite a bit for the community. But I also think it would be nice to have something in writing before the next meeting.
I'll just point out in my book, hopefully it's in your book too, there's the application. And under the Wellness Connection, on the first item they've asked for, there's 7 or 8 bullets that basically covers the same thing that she did for us. And then under the Working Assistance Program, there's another paragraph. So if you haven't seen that,
I did not see that in my packet.
we've already got it.
I apologize.
I also brought our employment services brochure. If you're interested, I can leave that with you as well.
And we also have extensive things from Jay as well. Okay. Anything else? Deanna, thank you very much. We appreciate all the things you do for the community and the wellness project. And Jay, you got another question up here, I was told, if you want to come back for a second. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Jay, thank you for your presentation. I was curious about the scholarships. Are those all new students to Boys and Girls Club who get scholarships, or are those sometimes returning students?
It's a mix of both. Some are brand new students, some are returning.
Okay. And are you able, I know you do a lot, but do you have the capacity to follow up on students as they leave, especially those students who are awarded either Student of the Year or other awards that they're given through Boys and Girls Club? Do you have the opportunity to follow up and see how they did in life?
Yeah, so we just started our program here. Boys and Girls Club has a program nationally, but we're all our own club, and we just started a club here. It's called the Boys and Girls Club Alumni Association, which I'm a part of as well. And so that's where we get to keep track of everybody who's went through the Boys and Girls Club and what they've been able to achieve. So.
Okay. You know, I'd like to see numbers of the kids that are in your program and the new kids that come in, and also, I know this is not the right term with Boys and Girls Club recidivism. Sorry to use that term, but kids that maybe drop out but then maybe come back, and how you manage all. So I don't know if I just get that privately from you just for my own knowledge, or if the council wants that information, we can let you know.
Yeah, I think that would be a good selling point for the club itself, especially when you're asking donors. If you could say, the kids that go to Boys and Girls Club, X% went on to college, university, post-secondary education, and that kind of thing, versus the normal population, those type of statistics.
Definitely, we do have some of those, and I can share that with Matt to pass along to you, or I can share it, and I'll put those forms together.
Give it to Matt, and then he'll get it to us.
Sounds good. I'll be talking to you.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Don't feel bad. She does that to me all the time with questions. So you're in good
I may
company.
ask you back again in a little bit.
She'll be asking me again here. Okay. Any other questions or discussion on this at this time? While we're still open to the public, I don't have any forms, but are there any members of the public that would like to address us on this issue? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 3 under new business. Mrs. Calhoun.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the City Council regular meeting minutes of February 22nd, 2018 be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, additions, deletions, corrections
I didn't see anything.
for meeting minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We next go on to item number 4, Mr. Blanchard.
Mr. Mayor, I move that resolution 2018-023, amendment for the comprehensive fiscal policy, be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Felix.
Mayor, members of council, the city first adopted a formal fiscal policy about 10 years ago. It has been amended once since then when we changed the way we were doing the sewer reimbursement districts. During the budget process and the strategic planning process, it was requested that we do another formal review of it with council, and a couple weeks ago we had a work session. There's only one major change that we have included and recommended for you, and that is in dealing with the fund balance, that at the end of the year we'll project the fund balance before the books are finally closed, and the staff will come to the council with a recommendation of where we can use those, and a list has been included. In addition, based off Tuesday's work session, the ability to use the any possible excess funding could also be used for any strategic planning projects that were not included in the budget. Other changes have been minor wording to clarify what they meant by it. For instance, a $10,000 general fund subsidy shall be called out, not a $10,000 general fund budget item, but if it's going to cost the general fund at least $10,000 in support of it, like we used to do with senior games and things like that, that will be specified for council to discuss in the budget process and to incorporate changes that have occurred that have already been passed by council, for instance, maintaining the strategic plan that you adopted, and so that's formally been folded into here. It's already done, but this reiterates again that what you would put in another place to do. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Felix. Questions from Mr. Felix? Yes, sir.
One, thank you very much for putting this all together. I know that we talked about it, so Chuck, thank you as well. In our packets, though, it doesn't mention the bullet for the strategic piece, but I assume that we're okay with that, right?
It's been added.
Okay.
It was in my change. I got it.
You have the change.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I think we're good
It's there.
No, I don't have any other questions, and again, thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Felix? Thank you, Mr. Felix. I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to item number 5. Ms. Wolf.
Mr. Mayor, I move that Resolution 2018-024, an intergovernmental agreement with the Arizona Department of Housing Office and Manufactured Housing, be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. McLaughlin, may we have the staff report, please?
Yes, this is a 5-year extension to our existing agreement with the State Department of Housing Office for the monitoring and enforcement of installation standards of factory-built buildings, mobile homes, and manufactured homes in the city. We've been operating under this agreement for more than a decade now with no issues. The amount of work effort by staff is relatively minimal. Last year, the city permitted 9 manufactured homes. The year prior was 4. The applicant is responsible for covering the $459 permit fee authorized by the agreement to cover our costs for conducting the required inspections. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Questions from Mr. McLaughlin? Yes, ma'am.
Why is there a special, why is this required for manufactured homes for the city and the number of homes that we take in?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Calhoun, this essentially is a delegation of authority to the city to enforce state requirements. These are not local standards that are being enforced. They're state requirements, and ordinarily, absent this agreement, the state housing inspector would have to carry out those inspections, which is very inefficient. For a number of years, it was the county, and then it was later determined that the city's in the best position to carry out those inspections, and therefore we're recommending approval of this intergovernmental agreement.
I just need to follow up for the edification of some folks who have questioned this. It really doesn't have to do with the fact that we're trying to limit or change the way we accept manufactured homes in the community. It's just about inspecting. I think when you mentioned the numbers that we did, it kind of sounded like, well, we're only going to do so many a year. But that is not part of this. This is only about the inspections of those homes. Is that correct?
Right. The reason why I raised the numbers is just to point out that it hasn't been a burdensome program to administer, and the market will determine how many additional homes we'll see in the future. There are 3 inspections required, and the fee that's imposed will cover our costs. So there'll be no fiscal impact to the city.
Thank you so much.
I will not be asking for additional staff to carry this out.
Was the bottom line.
I guess the larger.
Any other discussion, questions? Okay. We'll call for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. We now move on to item number 6. Ms. Ash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is exciting. I move that Resolution 2018-025, appointment to the Commission on Disability Issues of Jane C. Strain, said term to expire December 31st, 2018, and Stuart Carter, said term to expire December 31st, 2019, be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I know Ms. Strain is here. She even brought her mom. It was so important. And I don't see Mr. Carter, but Jane, thank you for, again, assisting the community. Any discussion?
We now have a quorum.
Yeah, excellent. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Congratulations. Looking forward to working with you. We now move on to item number 7. Mr. Mount.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I move Resolution 2018-026, the appointment to the Sierra Vista Airport Commission of Arthur Weisberger, said term to expire December 31st, 2019, be approved. And Mr. Mayor, Arthur is here in attendance. How are you, sir?
Second.
All right, thank you for being here, sir.
If I'd known there was so many, I'd have brought some pizza.
You don't, sir, you don't need to address us.
Pardon me, sir?
You don't need to address us. Any other comments, questions, discussion? I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you, I think.
We will now move on to call the public. I've got two folks that would like to speak with us tonight, and both have spoken before, so I won't go through the rules. We'll start with Mr. Andre Newcomb.
A little bit of discussion on the 10th Amendment. When we have disagreements in this nation of ours, they say that some states can have some laws and other states can go along with the feds. Well, we are here next to this military base, and we have all kinds of people who show up and want to enforce laws or any sort of thing they might want to do according to whatever sort of rumor mill they might have at the Pentagon. Now, this town, 10th Amendment things, is like when you have ordinances and laws, some of them by the Phoenix state legislature and some of them your own. If people were to show up here in this town and they brought a bunch of money and wanted to put up a big sign, that would be okay with you. But if they showed up in this town and didn't have money, they would have to live by your rules because of 10th Amendment sort of things. It used to be at the Arizona borders with all the states that there would be agricultural checks. And this was because back in those days, agriculture was a very dominant force in this state. And so they wanted to protect their crops and products from infestations. That was a 10th Amendment protection. We have a situation there along the river where they found that elephant and the Clovis people. And 10th Amendment protections would mean that they want to protect the heritage, but we won't be able to put a dam there, even though the dam is still on the books, though I don't think the dam would be a wise thing to do because it's not bounded by bedrock. But it's a 10th Amendment issue. You have police who can do whatever they want and have protection by 10th Amendment because of home rule states and all that kind of stuff, guaranteed by the 10th Amendment. When they are taken prisoners to indictment, they have plea bargains. But I rather suspect the plea bargain is there in case a police gets caught doing something. And the populace might go to the court and want to find out what happened to this defendant that we knew was wearing a police uniform. Did he get a plea bargain too? Is that just one of your escape clauses, you know, or your escape strategy like in Iraq, you know? It's a 10th Amendment issue. Yeah? When we see banks and stocks do the corruption that they do in the billions of dollars, the judgments that constantly keep coming down, this goes across state lines because the costs are spread out to the consumers. It's a 10th Amendment protection. It is a serious issue to my mind and my life that people can get all the money they get in their lifetime or even when they get prosecuted, and it only becomes civil, but my life goes in behind bars. That is a 10th Amendment issue. You know, Goldman Sachs, the SEC, all these things go across state lines, yet they are protected by the 10th Amendment. And the nice people of this world who work the minimum wage or have to take the SSI and live with the they jacking everybody around, and they hearing or what they've been talking about or even why they're here, because they've got 10th Amendment protections. And you do the same thing because you say it's home rule. I think these are concerns. They are concerns. I like to believe in the higher values of life, that everything that we've been promised through schools, through all life, is what's going to be.
Mr. Newcomb, your time has expired. I would ask you to conclude your remarks, please.
Yeah, I always see you and your 10th Amendment.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll ask Mr. John Williams to come for us.
Yeah, I won't take my full 5 minutes. This is the third time I've been here about the same subject. Nothing's been done. I'm going to refresh your memory. In 2015, Senator Gil Griffin of Hereford introduced a bill. Bill's known as SB 1185. It's now a law under ARS 33-1378. And it basically allows a landlord to evict a tenant's roommate who is not on the lease without any due process whatsoever, just by calling the police and having the roommate removed. That's what the law says. No ambiguity. The law was effective in July 2015, almost 3 years ago. It's the third time I've asked the council to find out why our police chief is not having his fine police department, and it's the finest police department in the state of Arizona, why he's not having them enforce this law. Couldn't get the police chief to enforce the law, but I was able on Tuesday night of this week to get the DEA and the Sheriff's Department to get rid of these people. I'm sure some of you saw it in the newspaper this morning. By raiding the premises on Tuesday night, arresting them. I would like to just, the people that didn't see it on the council, give you a copy. They can pass it around. It'll show you how they mess up the properties. And they ran, and the guy on the second page was the tenant they forced out of the property by force. Pushed him out into the
yeah, so
we've all seen
outside in a tent, and Miss Calhoun's been over and saw the property and met the tenant, so she's very aware of the situation. She was nice enough to come review the places with me. I just ask again, the council direct the police chief to enforce the law or tell us why he won't. That's all I know. All I hear is, like Mr. Clinton used to say, he's reviewing what the word is, and I don't understand what's going on. So. That's all.
Okay, Mr. Williams, if you just hang tight a minute,
Sure.
I'm going to probably break protocol and address this issue.
All right.
I will tell you the way the law is specifically written is unenforceable. What we are working on, and the lawyer can tell me or the chief can tell me, is we're looking at a process whereby if you have one of these tenants, you can come and basically file a written complaint, provide the lease that shows that this individual is not on the lease, and then at some point in time, once that complaint is filed, you would call the police force and say, hey, Mr. X, Miss X, whatever, whoever she is there at the property, and we'd like to meet you, and then you will get a response. But the way it's written, where we just have a cop show up, maybe 2 in the morning, maybe 3 in the morning, whenever, people may or may not have been using, as this article says, different substances. There's no way a cop on the scene is going to be able to figure out, is he the proper guy on the lease? Is he not the proper guy on the lease? I would bet you that most of these folks probably don't even know where the lease was. But if you've got a copy of the lease, if the person who is in there and is the lessor has a copy of the lease, we really need to see a copy of the lease and a complaint, and then we can take some action without it getting bounced out of court. Because the way the law is written, it's going to get bounced out of court. And then we're back at the same position.
Well, since you responded, I'd like to respond.
Sure.
It says you don't have to go to court.
Well-
So let me speak now. It says you don't have to go to court. It says that, and I take a copy of the lease. I've done this more than once. I give them a copy of the lease. The tenant's even there and gives them a copy of the lease. We're talking about people that are forced out of their own home that are tenants by people who are drug addicts, they're criminals. They force them out by threats. And he has a copy of the lease, I have a copy of the lease. The guy doesn't have any right to be there and can't produce any. That's what this law is really all about. So I would beg to differ with you, and, you know,
I'm trying to find a way to enforce this.
Good. I'm happy to hear that.
And that's the problem is you don't go to court to file a complaint. You can file a complaint at the police station.
We can do that now?
Yes, sir. You can go in and say, hey, this is the situation. Here's the complaint. Here's the documents you need to go get this individual or individuals. And then at some point in time when they're on the property, the police should be able to respond. Now, you shouldn't have to go to court, but obviously once we have somebody kicked off or apprehended for breaking this law, they may be going to court. And then you may have to go before the judge and say, yes, this isn't true the fact. So there's problems with the way the law is written, is what I'm telling you, and that's why we've been having trouble with enforcement.
Okay. Well, like I said, we're not asking you to put people out that are guests of the tenant. These are people that the tenant and the landlord want out of the property because they have gone in and criminally forced the guy out of his own house.
Believe me, I understand. We talked before about this, and I got your point the first time.
All I got to do is go see the police chief.
Well, you need to make sure you file a complaint with the police department. You bring a copy of the lease, and so they know which individuals aren't supposed to be there.
I couldn't ask for anything better. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Now, I hope I didn't get myself in trouble there, Ms. Clerk, because we're not supposed to address the issues. We'll call the public.
Mr. Mayor, with respect, I don't know if what you said was accurate, though, based on some of the body language that's.
Chief, you want to address that?
It's a little bit more complicated with that. I'll get with Mr. Williams afterwards.
I was very simplistic. I agree with you.
Okay, it's a quite a bit more complicated than that based on opinions from the city attorney and the county attorney. So, but I will get with.
But
Mr.
you need to get with
Williams.
Mr. Williams and make sure he understands what the wickets are that we have to go through to make sure that we can clean up his properties.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, now we'll go on to comments and requests of council. Mr. Mount.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be somewhat brief. Welcome all our new commissioners. I know that we've got a wealth of talent coming in that we could definitely use, so it's good to see you. Also, I'm really thankful for the council in supporting the change to the city's fiscal policy. I know that was something that we had talked about. I think that it adds a layer of transparency and accountability, and it kind of puts that power back to the council, where if during the budget process we overestimate or we budget for positions that aren't hired, or whatever the case may be, it would allow that money to come back for a second look so that council can maybe try to use that for some secondary or tertiary efforts that previously hadn't been thought of. And to put that as policy, I think is very, very important. With that said, I know that I also want to thank Community Development for their work with the West End Partnership Program. I know it went through planning and zoning. I sat through most of that, but I missed the vote, but I got the update today. And I encourage the public to take a look at that program holistically, to start kind of getting their thoughts and comments together. I know that's coming up to council for a decision, and I know that council, even after that vote next week or 2 weeks from now, we'll have some more discussion, because then we have subsequent design phases and funding phases and everything else that kind of come along with it. I'm very happy with the direction that we're heading with a number of different efforts, and I think it's going to be a good year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mount. Ms. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple things to say. I just want to remind everybody that the public comment period for whether or not you want chickens is still open, and I know we are still reading all of them that come up. And the second thing I want to say is that the Men Who Cook is coming up soon in a few weeks, and I'm sure that is going to sell out. So come get your tickets and support the symphony. Thank you.
And I think that's the 17th. No,
I want to say it's the 24th, but I didn't say specifically because I wasn't sure.
Not the 17th.
that's the week after. Okay, it's the week after the 24th.
24th.
Okay. Mr. Blanchard.
I have nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchard. Mrs. Calhoun.
Why, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just sit back and enjoy. I want to welcome and thank Mrs. Ward for coming to our meeting. Mrs. Ward has family here in Sierra Vista, and she has moved here. And her family is Jane and Bob Strain. She has moved here from Wichita Falls, Texas, a place I used to live in. And so welcome. Look forward to seeing you at future meetings, Mrs. Ward. Did I say that? Yes, Ward. Also, something that came as a little bit of a surprise to me, but a welcome surprise, that today was National Women's Day. And I was happy to hear on the radio and see on TV quite a bit of information that had long been hidden away in books somewhere about several women that I did not know about, including a lady who I have to say this, and I wish Tom Reardon was here because he could back me up on baseball. A lady who, and somebody else may know about this, a lady who struck out Babe Ruth and another famous baseball player. Anybody remember that name? Another guy who everybody would recognize. But she was only 17 years old, I think, when she struck them out in a game. And so that lady and many others are being talked about these days, and I think it would help our knowledge of American history to learn more about so many women who have not been talked about in American history. Also, there is so much going on in town this weekend that I couldn't even begin to, to say, oh, you ought to go to this. But do check the newspaper and Facebook and all those other ways of getting information, and do something this weekend because there's really a lot of fun things going on. Also, there are many, many, many young people in our community who are winning statewide recognition for so many things. I want to say a name so bad, but I'm not going to because I don't want to leave out anybody. But in basketball at Buena, and also some soccer teams that won in the Pima Cup this past weekend, and coaches who are winning state recognition. And I just want to be sure that folks in our community are recognizing that there's so many people here doing so much good stuff. And of course, I read the paper most of the time, so I see it there, but the information's out there. Please keep up with all the good things going on in our community. And the few little things like what's happening with Mr. Williams' property and all, I hope we're getting on those things. And I also hope that people in the community will bring those concerns to the city, to either council members or to staff who are waiting and willing to hear what you have to say about what you'd like to see happen, about the things you'd like that are happening, and throw in a couple of nice words to our staff because they do a really fantastic job. I believe that's all, but there may be something else. Just kidding. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Calhoun. I just want to say, I know we got a proud basketball mom here in the audience tonight as well. Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Ash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd first like to thank the Girl Scouts for doing the pledge for us today. It was so nice to hear some really young voices saying the pledge. And also there was a couple youth here. Oh, I still see Maggie. The McKinleys left, but shout out to the youth as always. And I'm really excited to head over to the guest fair right after this to see some great science projects from students throughout the county. So if you don't have anything else to do, you can come on over as well.
Thank you, Ms. Ash. I just want to congratulate the ladies on the International Women's Day today.
International, thank
it's
you.
bigger than we thought.
Thank you, yeah.
And the other thing is I want to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day, being the Irishman on the council here. With that, seeing nothing else before the council, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.